let's turn to Washington, D.C., because that's where the action is, folks, at least until midnight tonight, and then maybe even through the weekend, and we'll see there. So we're going to check in with Nathan Dean. He runs all of our policy stuff for Bloomberg Intelligence out of Washington, D.C. What does that mean? We have a bunch of experts down in Washington, D.C. for Bloomberg Intelligence, and they follow policy, they follow litigation, everything associated with your government and how it impacts industries, businesses, and they're really some smart folks. And at times like this, when we're talking about the governments and shutdowns and budgets and stuff like that, I don't know what's going on down there. So we talked to Nathan Dean. He knows what's going on. Hey, Nathan, have you fixed this thing yet? I'm putting all my faith in you. Where are we now with this potential shutdown?
Yeah, so we're in a situation where there's a lot of ideas being floated around Capitol Hill. You know, just 2 hours ago, there was this idea of a 3-week stopgap solution. It certainly could come back. One of the ideas that we've just heard is potentially breaking up this continuing resolution into several bills, one continuing resolution, one farm bill, one debt ceiling, and so forth like that, and then have individual votes. But I think what Speaker Johnson's trying to do at the moment is trying to figure out, A, how do I keep the government from shutting down? He does not want to have a shutdown occur over the holidays. And B, also remain true to what President Trump's ultimate goal is at this point, and that is to get the debt ceiling resolved before January 20th. There's a lot of ideas, a lot of floats out there, a lot of options and so forth, but we're still sticking to this 40% chance of a shutdown by Monday. Even though I know the government shuts down tonight, Congress could take the weekend to figure it out before government workers can't go into the office on Monday morning.
Nathan, the U.S. is unique. I mean, other countries don't do this whole thing of a government shutdown. So let's take it a step back. What exactly is a government shutdown, and what are the implications of it?
Yeah, so this is essentially because Congress fails routinely to pass an annual appropriations bill. And when that happens, they have to do what's called a continuing resolution to keep the government funded. Now, if the government does shut down, all non-essential government workers cannot work. They're furloughed. Now, they do get the back pay, usually retroactively every single time this has happened. The back pay comes, but you see a lot of essential services, non-essential services grind to a halt. You won't be able to go to the museums in D.C. this weekend. You won't be able to get your visa processed for the passport. But there's also other impacts, like the TSA, while they're working, when this has happened over the holidays before, a lot of them called in sick. And so if you're traveling next week and the government shuts down, you certainly want to give an extra time at the airport. But ultimately, government shutdowns are not good politics. The party that causes the shutdown ultimately is the one that pays the political price. And look, it's easy for President Trump to say that he wants to shut it down right now. He's got 4 more years. But there's a lot of House members that barely won their constituencies over the election. They certainly don't want to see their popularity go down at the same time that they're trying to push forward President Trump's agenda next year.
Nathan, you mentioned that non-essential government workers would be affected by this. Who are considered essential? What can still be counted on in the event that there is a shutdown that occurs?
Yeah, so things like Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, mandatory spending, that all continues. So there's really no impact from a shutdown like this. Usually Department of Defense, CIA, FBI, they're essential. Even the U.S. congressional gym is considered essential just because Congress folks love to use it during shutdowns. But what is non-essential is if you think of an agency like the Securities and Exchange Commission, well, they're not going to be doing any policy work here. There's not going to be any new rules, new regulations. There's still going to be somebody monitoring the markets, but an enforcement action is probably not going to happen just because the BlackBerries get turned off, the emails get turned off, and you can't enter the office. There's no work that you can do other than the bare bones of keeping the government operating.
Nathan Dean, my Bloomberg news feed is full of news about President-elect Donald Trump and some other civilian named Elon Musk. I'm not seeing anything from my president, your president, our president, Biden. What's going on there? What's the word down in D.C.?
Yeah, so if you talk to the Democrats, they'll say this is a Republican problem. I mean, we saw Vice President-elect J.D. Vance last night just blame the Democrats for the failure to get the debt ceiling vote going forward. But ultimately, this is a Republican issue. 38 Republicans voted against President Trump's desires with that package. And so there's no unity at the Republican side. So what President Biden and Hakeem Jeffries and Chuck Schumer are doing at the moment is they're essentially just saying to the Republicans, look, we're not going to help you right now. We're not going to bail you out. You have to figure out what the plan is. Then you'll come to us, and then we'll see what we do.
All right, that's how it works. All right, Nathan, I'm depending upon you. You're the only sane guy I know down there in Washington, D.C. I'm depending upon you to get things fixed down there. Nathan Dean, Senior Policy Analyst for Bloomberg Intelligence. It just seems, Nora, we get to this, I think it's almost like an annual basis.
Right.
These, government shutdowns, threats of shutdowns. We had certainly during President Trump's first administration, we had a couple of shutdowns. One was, I think, 35 days.
35 days was the longest one we had.
So it's becoming, I guess, a more normalized part of governing with the stark divide, the even, it's 50-50 pretty much in the Senate and the House almost. That's, I guess, what you end up with.
Narrow margin, for